Everyone thinks D-Day won the war. They're catastrophically wrong. The Normandy landings, undoubtedly pivotal, merely cracked open the door to Hitler's Fortress Europe. What followed was a brutal, often overlooked campaign fought in the bleak, waterlogged lowlands of the Netherlands and Belgium. Without this struggle, the Allied advance would have stalled, perhaps irrevocably. By early September 1944, the Allies were flying high. Paris liberated, the Germans in headlong retreat. General Montgomery, ever confident, believed the war could be over by Christmas. But a critical, strategic vulnerability was emerging, one that threatened to unravel their entire offensive: logistics. The sheer scale of men and material required to sustain an army of millions across Western Europe was staggering. Every advance, every mile gained, stretched their supply lines thinner. Fuel, ammunition, food, everything had to come from the beaches of Normandy, then trucked hundreds of miles. Antwerp, Belgium, was the answer. Its port, the second largest in Europe, was captured almost intact on September 4th by the British 11th Armoured Division. A deep-water port, capable of handling dozens of Liberty ships simultaneously. It was a logistical godsend, if only they could use it. The problem, the Scheldt estuary, a 60-mile-long waterway connecting Antwerp to the North Sea. Both banks of this winding, treacherous passage were still firmly in German hands. To open Antwerp, the Scheldt had to be cleared, a task that would prove horrifyingly difficult. Churchill himself recognized the gravity, stating the opening of Antwerp was of first-class importance. Yet, the Allied command initially underestimated the challenge, prioritizing Operation Market Garden, the ill-fated airborne push into Holland. While Market Garden unfolded, the Canadian First Army, under Lieutenant General Guy Simonds, was given the unenviable task of clearing the Scheldt. They were tired, undermanned, and facing a determined, dug-in enemy. This wouldn't be a swift advance. The terrain itself was a formidable opponent. The Scheldt region was a labyrinth of canals, dikes, and flooded polders. Perfect defensive ground for the Germans, who often held the high ground on critical dikes, forcing frontal assaults across open, waterlogged fields. The battle broke into 4 distinct phases, each a grinding, attritional fight. First, securing the area north of Antwerp, then clearing the South Beveland Peninsula, followed by the crossing of the Slodum Causeway, and finally, the amphibious assaults on Walcheren Island. The South Beveland Peninsula, a narrow strip of land, was taken at immense cost. The Germans, primarily from the 64th Infantry Division, fought with desperate tenacity, knowing the stakes. Casualties mounted rapidly on both sides. Then came the Slodum Causeway, a thin, one-lane road connecting South Beveland to Walcheren Island. It became a killing ground. Wave after wave of Canadian and British troops attacked, only to be cut down by entrenched German fire. It was a miniature Passchendaele. Walcheren Island itself was a natural fortress, heavily defended with concrete bunkers, artillery batteries, and machine gun nests, forming part of the formidable Atlantic Wall. Its strategic importance was undeniable. It controlled the mouth of the Scheldt. To soften the defenses, the RAF conducted massive bombing raids targeting the island's dikes. The intent was to flood the interior, forcing the Germans to higher ground and limiting their maneuverability. It worked, but at a terrible cost to the Dutch civilian population. On November 1st, Operation Infatuate began. British commandos and Royal Marines launched daring amphibious landings on Walcheren. They faced ferocious resistance, fighting house to house, bunker, often in waist-deep water. After 3 weeks of relentless combat, the last German strongholds on Walcheren fell on November 8th. The Scheldt was finally clear, but the fight wasn't over. The estuary itself was heavily mined, requiring a painstaking, dangerous sweep. It took another 3 weeks for Allied minesweepers to clear the entire channel. On November 28th, the first convoy of 9 merchant ships, led by the Canadian freighter Fort Cataraqui, steamed into Antwerp. A lifeline had been opened. The cost of the Scheldt campaign was immense. Over 800 Allied casualties, including 367 Canadians, dead, wounded, or missing. But the strategic impact was undeniable. Antwerp port allowed the Allies to dramatically shorten their supply lines. Within weeks, Antwerp was handling more than 30,000 tons of supplies daily. This logistical artery proved absolutely vital in repelling the subsequent German Ardennes offensive, the Battle of the Bulge. Without Antwerp, the Allied armies would have simply ground to a halt. The Battle of the Scheldt, though often overshadowed by D-Day or Market Garden, was a testament to the grim determination of the Allied forces, particularly the Canadians. It was a battle fought in the mud and the water, a battle for logistics, and ultimately, a battle for the very momentum of the war. Subscribe if you seek to uncover more of these critical, yet often overlooked, chapters of World War II history.